Okay, so hopefully everything is working now as intended. I had a little technical difficulty because YouTube dashboard didn't want to show up, but apparently now it should be working as intended. So let me just quickly post the link on the Discord. Okay, and we can get going in a moment. Cool. Hi. So I guess we should start by opening a Vox edit to see what we kind of left off last time. So we have started making some pillars to kind of get the rough shape and size idea. Now I'm gonna import it to the game maker so we can, well, okay, so that's what we got right now. And let's see how big this actually is in the game. So let me quickly export these pillars, and then we'll try to make perhaps some robotic arms or like a turntable in between them, so we can maybe make like an animation of a mech being assembled or something like that. So just a second. So I have a I have a basically this screen where I'm uploading this stuff. So I think these two steps are enough, and now we should be able to see it in the game maker. So let's open that up, and I guess we can go to our test map. Let's wait for it to load, and then we can try out our pillars. Let me find some place where we don't have stuff placed yet, and let's see. I think Mech, okay, Mech assembly. Now let's try to place this down somewhere here. Then if we go into the play mode, okay, we're on the other side of the map, but no problem there. Okay, so that's pretty large. Maybe we can space them out a little bit more so we can have some more room here in the middle, but with the height I am pretty satisfied. So let's close that, and let's get back to Vox edit. And now let's see, maybe we can move this by, so if we move it by 16, then we get another block in the middle. So if we add 16 to that, we should be at 104, I think. So let's try to move all of them to 104, and I guess then we have our rough size. So oh, that's 114, my bad. 104 and 104 here as well. Then also here, so oh, come on. The last voxels are sometimes tricky to align. Okay, and then 104, and okay. And basically I was thinking we could make like some beams here at the top, and then we would have like some arms moving around, like up and down the rail, and then we would have like a turntable here in the bottom that would be kind of rotating to kind of help with the orientation of our mech, I guess, that we're building. So maybe we can start with the turntable, and we're gonna use one of the techniques of making circles, because square turntable, well, let's not go with that. So maybe we can duplicate the pillar base and then name it turntable. Then actually we could kind of guess the rough dimensions, so maybe it can be 5 blocks in diameter. So we can know this size already, so it would be 5 blocks is let's see, 160, right? Something like that. And I guess we can keep the same color as we're using for, well, apparently not, because the default is black, so I guess we can color it black. And then let's center the pivot point to 80. And other than that, it should be fine. We can make it a little bit wider later if that turns out to be the case. And now let's collapse some of these pillars so we have some room for our turntable. So let's create the base pivot point or node. So name it turntable. Turntable, okay. Let's make sure we spell that correctly. And now we can create a child node, name it, probably turn 0 would be unique enough so we don't clash with some other names later on. And then if we rotate this around, yeah, we get kind of this shape that we would, well, we can kind of try to guess like the width and the rotations that we want to take. So this is like 45 degrees. And then if we kind of experiment a little bit with our sizes, maybe we can make it a little bit wider. So maybe let's try 64. And then let's fill that in. And then if we center this again, so we need to put it to 32. We are still kind of left with this little tooth, but I don't think that's too problematic, and we can also kind of color it in some way that kind of covers that a little bit. But one big plus of that is that, well, we're basically making an octagon, because we're gonna use 4 of these shapes and they're just rotated, and it's gonna make kind of like a circle. So I guess we can now duplicate this node, name it turn1. And now when we nest it here, it's also gonna rotate, so that's nice. And then let's duplicate this one again. So we name it turn2, and we repeat the same process, and now we're kind of left off with a shape like this. That only uses like so 6 times 4, 24 faces and 4 nodes, so that's pretty efficient from that aspect. But like one problem that we have, like we won't be able to really draw anything on top because we're gonna have Z fighting. Let me just quickly show you what that would look like. So if we draw a line maybe here, it can be a straight line, then we save. You can see here that we're having like some issues because they're basically overlapping at the same height, so we need to be careful with that. And now I have stuck the camera inside of a pillar. That's also not something that you really want to do. Okay, so let's cover this up. Okay, so now we have our turntable here at the bottom, and maybe we can make like some horizontal pillars, like connecting these at the top. Can right click on the pivot icon. You mean this one, reset view, or is there some other option to help with stuff like that? Because it can sometimes happen, like you're rotating around this and then you go kind of little back and kind of messes everything up. So I know about this one, reset view. If there is something else, it's also great that it helps, because sometimes it can be difficult to get out of these weird views. So I'm just thinking maybe we can reuse the pillar from here to just kind of connect these sides, and then maybe we can make some rails so our arm can slide in between. So I guess let's go ahead and do that. And I'm just trying to figure out, maybe we can create another parent node for that. So let's name this, I don't know, top rails. And then I guess we can create a child node for each one so we can duplicate it later. So let's name this TR0. Hopefully that's gonna be unique enough also. Oh, and now we're rotating the turntable. Let me move you up. Let me turn you by 90 degrees. And now we're gonna soon see if, well, we can kind of count already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half. I think it should be just enough. Let's see. It's a little bit tricky to kind of see. Maybe we can turn on the node bounding boxes so we can see a little bit better where the edges are. And now the shift doesn't seem to be working properly anymore. When we edit a VXM. Oh, so there seems to be like a little arrow down here. But I'm not able to click it. Oh, I didn't even know about that. Thanks for letting me know. Let's not save the changes. Okay, so actually now that we have moved them apart a little bit, we actually get just to the edge of this 8 block size. So I guess that's fine. Maybe later on, if we choose to use different colors, maybe we can make them like we move them out a little bit more, just so we don't have like the same issue that I have mentioned before here on the edge. And let me just go to the inspector. As you can see, we need to move it by a little bit just so it's aligned perfectly. And now let's see, this goes from 124 to 48. So maybe we can move on to 94. And then let's name this one TR. We're gonna have to nice. We're gonna have to basically name them like this. So we use some more numbers to keep them unique, and also we can kind of distinguish between them. So let's rename these to TR00, like so. And this one goes to 114. So we have something like that. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in VoxEdit that you just, and you don't really need to use all of it to get like done what you want to get done, but stuff like that, it definitely makes the process a lot faster and smoother if you're aware of it. So thanks for letting me know again. So let's duplicate this. Actually, we have kind of, I didn't want to do that actually. Let me delete this node. Let's create this as a child node to it. So here is it, TR01. And now let's attach our pillar to it. And why I did that, it will soon become kind of apparent, because now we can just go ahead and duplicate this one. So this one is going to be TR10. And then we can just rotate it by 90 degrees and then realign it again, and it basically saves some time. So we're gonna have to go to the inspector view again, because otherwise I fear we won't be able to align it nicely. So let's type, well, we can just delete this, and then from this side we can do 316, I think. So now we have two sides, and we're basically gonna repeat the same process for the rest. So Let's duplicate this into TR20. What we're kind of trying to do is what we started last time. So kind of the main idea is, let me just find the image. Kind of idea is something like one of these units maybe, but it's gonna look a little bit different. So basically it's like some assembly line for some Mech unit or something like that. That's like the original idea, but we'll see what we get in the end. So basically I'm trying to do the frame around it first, and then we'll kind of try to figure out what kind of thing we want to put in the middle, and then we can also animate like it's being built. So maybe you have a couple of states, like one of them is just the turntable and the parts on the side, and then maybe you have an animation that's like assembling it all together, and then in the end or the second or the third state would be like the assembled Mech on the turntable and everything like that. So that's like the idea. And hopefully we manage to execute on it. So here we have our third one, and it's just a little bit weird because we have this pivot point and that's not like in the middle, but a little bit aligning. We'll fix that. So 116 I think, and then 128. Yeah, thanks. Hopefully it turns out to be as great as it is in my mind. And let's duplicate this one to TR30. Then let's move it all the way across. Let me check the so that's the old one. So this one is 116, and then since we have moved this one, and it has the pivot point on the other side, so maybe 96 seems to be about right. Is it though? Does this look like a square? I think it should be moved to maybe -94. Okay, let me just check with the rest if these look like squares. That's gonna be tricky. Well, this one is definitely not a square. Let me try to fix that. Somewhere around here. So maybe... Okay. No, we're not gonna do it that way because I don't like it not being like nicely centered. So let me just delete these nodes and we'll fix the first one. So let's see. Create a child node. Let's name this one top rail 0. And then try to attach this to it. And our node is right now at the center. So if we rotate it, okay, it should match nicely. We can just see here that, wait a second. Oh, that's odd. Okay, that's interesting. Why is there like 1 voxel of space? I'm pretty sure we have like, yeah, we didn't move this to the correct position. So 104. Okay, so that's done. Now let me close these hierarchies. And now, since I have added another node, we can just rotate this nicely. So let me just duplicate this, name it TR1. And we can just rotate, come on. Oh, come on. Oh well, let's do it again, TR1. And now let's make sure we can grab it here, and then let's rotate it by another 90 degrees. And now it should be exactly what we want it to be. So let's duplicate again, TR2. And again, rotate, but be careful that we don't click on any of the turntable pieces, because in that case it's just gonna rotate the turntable and it's gonna mess up everything. So duplicate the last time, TR3, and then let's rotate this again all the way around. So we have something like this. So we have basically all the support built. And then, let me see, we would probably have like some blocks on either these two rails or these two, and then we would have like a beam in between that would be moving around or across, to be more precise. So let's try to do that. And I'm thinking, what should we name this now? So I don't know, maybe arm base, and the size is gonna be decided a little bit later. So let's go here. Let's make this a little bit smaller, and we're actually lying with the dimensions because these are not 2 by 2 but 1.5 actually. But we can just start by making it like one block, and we'll see how this size fits with the rest. So let's center the pivot point. And then maybe we can also, let me check where the orientation is actually. So, okay. So we're gonna put them on this side and on this side. So let me just collapse that. And we can nest it to the top rails. So let's create a child node. Let's name it, well, arm base is like arm slide maybe 0. Let me see. Okay, so these are, I was a little bit confused because it's indented, but these have like this plus sign next to it, so it's all right. And let me just rename this also, so arm slide base, just so we can kind of distinguish in between them. Now let's move it upwards. And yeah, in this case, it's a little bit annoying that we have the actual pivot point at the bottom, but whatever. So I think the width and the depth are kind of nice because it overlaps a little bit, but it can be definitely a little bit shorter. So maybe let's cut the height in half, and let's see where this gets us. So a little bit higher. Let's try to center it. Is this kind of... I think it's kind of centered. And now we would need to... I guess we should nest all the rest to this node, because when we move it, so the whole arm or like the whole slide moves with it. So let me duplicate this into arm slide, because it's gonna be it's gonna have to be a little bit shorter than what we had before, or like this pillar that is like the max height. And what exactly did I do that we got this here? Do we have a picture? Okay, apparently I made a one voxel picture frame there on the pillar, and I think we should go to the other part to remove that as well. So this is like 200, and let me quickly go to the pillar and get rid of that also here. We don't want that. Okay. So there's that, and then let's create a child node, and let's name this slide, I guess. Then we can rotate it, by 90 degrees. And then let's try to center it again, and we can maybe try to also... Oh, we actually hit the exact voxel. And then here we should go maybe to 8, something like that. And as you can see, it's still too long, but we'll fix that a little bit later. I think we should first create another child node. That's gonna be arm slide 1, and you can already guess from the name what that's gonna be. So we're gonna attach this and then move it all the way across to 208 apparently. And now we can actually start making this shorter. So maybe 180, a little bit less still, 170, so that's too little. 174, okay, 176 feels like it should be, yeah, the right size. And let me just color this in, and maybe this can be like I mean, usually these sliding arms are like just pure iron or steel or something like that, so perhaps it would make sense for it to be gray, and we can maybe distinguish it a little bit easier from the rest. And then also another little thing that could be useful if we do it right now would be to rotate this part by 90 degrees, just so when we start maybe making some details, they would be aligned properly. So let me just rotate this by 180, and I can quickly show you what I meant by maybe doing just like some outline. And then if we check it out on the other side, we can see that both of them have this shape on the right side and not on the outside. So that's basically that. And then we would need another part that's sliding up and down this direction, so we can get all the 3 degrees of movement. So let me just show you why I nested all of this here. It's just so we can move them by a single keyframe basically. We don't have to create separate keyframes for every part of this slide basically. So now we're actually gonna get to the arm base. So let's duplicate this into arm base. That's gonna be on the slide. So let's create a child node from this node. Here, let's name it arm base. Let's put our VXM to it, and let's make sure we select the appropriate node when we are moving it left and right. And now we can, okay, so now it's rotated, so it's gonna have a little bit different dimensions. We can make it actually a little bit higher from this perspective, but also like shorter and narrower, so that can be maybe made into a 16 by 16. And now let me fill that in, and then we can also fill the whole volume with voxels, and then let's also recenter the pivot point. And now we can do it on the horizontal axis as well, because I guess it makes sense, right? And then let's move this to 8. Cool, so this should be pretty much centered. We can just now try to kind of figure out if this is, I think it's 200, no, it's 176 tall, so that divided by 2 would be 88, I think. So let's try to move this to 88, just so everything is kind of centered in this default view. And maybe we can save as well, just in case something crashes and we don't want to lose our progress, of course. And now from here, maybe let me just check out some images of the like assembly line robot, just so we can kind of get the idea. Okay, so these are mostly in the like car manufacturing, and these are also mostly positioned on the floor, so you're gonna kind of see a little bit different way of making them. So maybe one image is something like that. Oh, and these are actually hanging from the ceiling. Perfect. So I can, oh, and this is like a really low resolution image. So yeah, we'll see how we actually want to do that. So I'm kind of thinking that we should make like a bulkier part underneath that's like housing the gears and like rotating motors and stuff, so it doesn't just like, we don't start building an arm from here, but maybe from a little bit downwards. So maybe let's try to make this a little bit bigger, especially in the X direction. So maybe 48 would be like enough, and then we can just flip it. And now let's turn on the nice lines so we can see a little bit better what's going on. And we can also mirror it across X and the Z axis. So, oh no, actually across these two? No, we don't want to mirror across X, so yeah. It's a little bit tricky when you have everything rotated around. So maybe we can extend this outwards a little bit. So 6, 7, 8. Is this 8? Let me just double check. Okay, we need one more. And then let's make another layer. And now it's gonna be outdented by a little bit if we were actually using voxels and not just coloring them. So like this. Let me just double check again if we have 8. So 2, 4, 6, and 8. Perfect. And now we can extend this by another voxel outwards. So that's gonna be like our main head, or whatever it's actually called. And maybe we can make this into a cube. So let me just check the size. So 6, 8, 10, 12. And then this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now we have this hanging part that's gonna be basically our arm base. And now we can also trim the volume. And let's not forget to also flip it around, just so it's actually oriented in the right way. Okay, so this looks pretty fine. This actually looks a little bit small compared to the rest of the stuff. Maybe we can save and try to export it again to check it in the game maker, so we can kind of see what the new dimensions look like in the game. So let's wait a little bit for all the nodes to process. And then we're just gonna basically replace the old asset that we have tested before. And now let's go to the game maker. I think we should save, just so we don't have to place it down again. And now let's see, maybe if we start the game and then get out of it, it's gonna get updated automatically. Looks like it. Okay, nice. So we don't even have to relaunch it again. And also we can move the spawn a little bit closer. So that's kind of what it looks like right now. And I think we could make the like the arm base a little bit bulkier, because most of these robots or robot arms have like huge first joint and they're getting gradually smaller. So perhaps there's something we can use in our little asset. Well, it's not so little to be honest, actually. So I guess the easiest way would be to flip this back again. So when we extend the x-axis, it's extended in the right way. And then maybe we can just extend this to the outer dimension. So let's see, 1, 2. Okay, and then 1, 2. And then that's 4, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me just quickly check. 2, 4, 6, 10, 12, 14, 16, 2, 4, 6, 12, 4, wait. 14, 16. Okay, so now we have a 16 by 16 cube here at the end. And now let's also flip it back, save, and go back to our animator. And maybe we can turn off these bounding boxes because we don't really need to see them right now. Okay, so now for the arm link, let's see which part we actually want to duplicate here. So maybe the arm base. And I think I'm just gonna use, let me see. Do we want to use 2 or 3 links? So that's another consideration to make. Maybe we can just name this arm link and then we'll figure it out. So there we have a 16 by 16 base, and maybe we can make it look like a little bit. So some of those joints you have that are like one ball that's smaller, and then you have the other part that kind of comes around it and then it can kind of freely rotate. I'm not really sure what those are called, so I can't really search a web for like a better example than what I have just shown, but hopefully you get the idea of what we're trying to achieve. So let's reduce the size by a little bit, and then we'll of course soon see if that is small enough or whether we should make it a little bit smaller still. So now let's try to attach that to our arm base. Let's create a child node and name it, I guess, arm link 0, and attach this to it. Okay. No. Let's select the arm link 0. And then we need to kind of rotate it around. So those are actually kind of connected. So in this case, when we would be rotating, it would kind of look like this. And one other thing that we need to be kind of careful of is when we rotate it, like maybe we can test the extremes. I mean, it's not gonna move to here in the animation, but it's useful to test these cases just so we can kind of see. So maybe nothing is sticking out here or stuff like that. So that's always nice to double check. And then again, we can turn on these collision boxes, and maybe now we can see that we can even move it downwards a little bit. So maybe to 24. Just so when it rotates, it definitely covers all the stuff that it should. Or actually we can even make an example. So let me just check this here, -24. So if we were to move it too high up, okay, now you can already see this, but when we would rotate it, okay, apparently it's larger by enough margin that it doesn't affect it, but yeah, I think we were at -14. Nope. Where were we before? Let me undo this again. Okay, we were at -24. Sure. So now we also need to kind of figure out what kind of an arm we're building, and it would be also kind of useful if it ended with the same basically kind of a joint that we have here. So when we attach a new one, it kind of makes sense that they all like connect nicely, right? So let's open this. First, of course, let's cover this part up. And then we can extend this. Maybe we can make it like 1.5 blocks. And even that's not really much. Maybe we can make it 2 blocks. And now at the top, we would end up with a 16 by 16 cube, and we're still using our mirrors, which is good. Just that they are now on the wrong axis again. So let me change that, and let's also reset our view. And now here, let me try to kind of figure out the middle. And also let's use the correct tool. So this is gonna, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when we go by 8, then when it's duplicate, it's gonna be 16 by 16. And now we need to add the thickness as well. So it's 2, 3. Okay, so now we have a 16 by 16 cube, and then we can basically make some margin, maybe 4. And now let's try to connect one of these sides to the middle, and when it duplicates, we kind of get this kind of an arm. Maybe it's a little bit thin here in the middle. We can make it thicker later on if we decide that's necessary. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, so it's quite long. And also now I'm thinking whether we should have like some... So you can have like a joint that's rotating, or you can have like some part that's just extending outwards. So now I'm also thinking about that, if we want to have, like, I don't know, if it grabs something off the ground and then it just retracts inwards and then it moves around a little bit. So, that could be interesting to make. Let me think for a second. Maybe all of this could be... When you start thinking like that, it can get really complicated really soon. So let's move this upwards by a little bit, just so we have a little bit more space, maybe to -20. And then let's also make this a little bit shorter. Or we can make this part a little bit thicker, and then it should also help. So we can try with that. So it has just 2 voxels of margin on each side. Now it looks a lot more sturdy and strong. And just to kind of continue on that idea that I started on, just by duplicating this stuff. So I guess we can duplicate this into arm link 1. And when we nest it, it's gonna probably look messed up. Yep. Let me reset the rotations and reset the translations, basically. So now you can basically infinitely nest them, because one of them ends on like this smaller joint, and then the other one starts with the bigger one, and then you can just kind of rotate this stuff around as you please. So you kind of get the idea of what the arm is gonna look like. And here finally we have the issue that I wanted to warn you about beforehand. So here you can kind of see that a little bit of this smaller node is sticking out here when you orient it just right. Maybe I could even color it some other color, so that's even more obvious. So let me just do this, because it's gonna also help later on with determining such issues. Okay, you can clearly see it here. So from that aspect, it's kind of better if you move this a little bit downwards, so when it rotates it doesn't stick out as soon. So that's also something that we're gonna need to care of, and I think that yeah, you kind of get used to stuff like this as you do the mistakes. You basically learn from them, and hopefully later on you make less mistakes. So now, even though it kind of sounded poetic that we would have this cube here, maybe we can make it a little bit shorter, just so we don't get those weird overlaps when we try to rotate the arm. Or we're just kind of designing this, and just so there's as little complications as possible when we go ahead and try to animate it. We'll see if we manage to get to that today, or I do it offline, or I don't know. Is anybody interested in like animations, or mostly like just rigging projects and building stuff and then leave the animating stuff for someone else? It kind of helps. Also, if I know what you guys like, it makes it easier for me to make the content you enjoy. So this is now smaller, right? Okay, so this is 14, and we can move everything up by a little bit. So we shouldn't have those problems anymore. Maybe to 54. And now let's try to rotate it again to kind of see if we get any issues. Okay, it doesn't look like it. Cool, thanks for feedback. So now we can kind of try to figure out what the extending our arm would look like. And also, should that be like in the middle? So we have, oh my god, I should bring some props or something. So you basically have like one rotating part and then one extending, or does it make it easier if like the grabbing part is just like being able to, let me, oh no. It's difficult to orient on this camera, but basically you have a joint here, and then, oh my god, that it just moves like outwards. I guess we're gonna go with that. So we're gonna make another arm link, and so this is gonna be arm link 0, and this one is gonna look a little bit different from the rest. So let me duplicate this, and we can do the same trick as we did before. So arm link 2, and then attach it to the parent, so it just gets extended. And then let's attach the new node to it. And now this one is gonna be a little bit thicker, just so we can have like a base, and then it's gonna be like a stick with the gray part on it. That's also why it's useful to not use the same color for everything, because it's easier to distinguish them from one another. I mean, when I mentioned the gray part, you probably all knew that I meant this semi-cube on the end, hopefully. Hopefully I was clear enough. So let me just extend this upwards a little bit to... Well, actually, you know what? We can just delete that. Because it's gonna be made from two different parts, because it needs to extend out, so otherwise you can't do that. So maybe this can be like 48 or 32 maybe. I don't think... I think 48 might be a little bit too much, and the 32 a little bit too little, so maybe let's settle for something in the middle, right? So 12, 12, 0, that's great. Okay, so now we have our, this is gonna be like the rotating part. And then let's extend this, duplicate arm link 2, I guess. Even though they're basically two parts of the same link, it's just easier to name it that way. And then for this one, we're just gonna get rid of this thicker base because we already have it with the arm link 1. Okay, and then here as well, and then maybe we can make it just a little bit shorter, or not actually, we'll see. And then here we can also trim the volume because it's a little bit smaller. Cool. And now let's create another child node, name this one arm link 3. And then let's drag our arm link 2 to it. Okay. And now, so this part can still rotate, but this part will go inwards and outwards. And then here we can also put the grabby thingy on. So let's see. And also let's save, because unfortunately if it crashes in this part, all the node hierarchies and the stuff like that is gonna be lost, so we would have to redo that again. So that's also another thing that's kind of useful to be a little bit mindful of. And then for the hand base, I think we're gonna use the same width as we have here, and then we'll just try to make some fingers. It's probably gonna be just them moving like apart and together so they can grab. We're not gonna do like some fancy like humanoid where we have multiple joints in the fingers as well. I don't think that's really necessary, and it's gonna make the whole thing much more complicated for at least what I would consider no good reason. So let's call the new node hand base. And this one is gonna be, of course, a little bit shorter than the rest. So maybe this one can even be 24. Let's see. So if we create another child node, hand base, and let's attach our model to it, then let's extend it downwards by how much? Let me see here, 54. This one is at almost there, just one voxel downwards. Perfect. Okay, so that's our arm base, and then we can make like two little fingers here, and it's kind of good that we have made the perpetual slide one, so I have a little bit of an idea of how this stuff should kind of work, even though we have a little bit different joints than what we use there. So let me duplicate this into, I guess, hand fingers. Even though it's kind of obvious that your fingers should be coming out of your hand, but you never know, and we need the unique names, so let's go with that. And now this one can be like a little bit smaller, but it can be still chunky. I don't mind that. And let's make it maybe I think we should make it like, yeah, we'll see how far this should extend actually. So we can just make it for starters something like that, and then we can just kind of cut. What the heck happened here? Okay, let me try to do this again. Oh, and we should turn off the mirrors. Just so we get kind of this finger shape on one side, and then this is gonna be mostly hidden inside of the hand, but once it basically once it extends out, it still needs to be kind of shown. So I'm kind of trying to show you on camera, but it's gonna look much more obvious once I do it in the animator. So let me create a child node. Let's name this one finger 0. Let me move to the right so we can see the full name. And then let's attach one finger here. Let's see where we got it. Okay, so it extends this way, and it's also oriented the wrong way. So let me quickly fix that. Let's flip it over the y-axis, and then we'll also need to readjust the pivot point to 0. So like this. And also it wouldn't hurt if we moved the pivot point to the center of the z-axis as well, just so we have everything nicely centered. And then let's move it downwards. Yeah, I'm not sure by how much actually. It should be moved downwards by quite some. So when it's closed, it's something like this, and then it can open up by some margin. We'll see what that margin should be, but we're kind of limited with the size of this, because otherwise it's just gonna start sticking out on the other side. So that's also not something that we would really want. So now let's duplicate this node to finger 1. Okay, and then let's rotate it around by 180 degrees, and then let's also push it outwards by a little bit. And now here we have like this little problem where we don't have it, we don't have the pivot point basically in the middle, so we need to kind of hide I think maybe something like this kind of looks like they're both extended by the same, yeah, probably at -3. So that's kind of what our arm is gonna end up looking like. And we basically have 1, 2, 3, 4 rotating joints, and one can also extend outwards. And now we can try to test this in the game maker as well. So let me export that, and I guess I can show the perpetual slide real quickly, just so you can kind of see like the first project where I was playing around with these robotic arms and stuff like that. So let me just quickly select replace asset here in the browser. Okay, so there we have that. Let me go back, and then if we relaunch this, is it gonna update? Let's wait a little bit longer. So I guess we can save this, and then the asset that I mentioned should be, let's see, where's the P? Okay. So we basically did something like this, where we have this cube that's rolling downwards, and then it just picks it up and moves it back on. So let me just show you the animation real quickly, and hopefully in the meantime the game server is gonna notice that we have updated our model of the Mech assembly. So that's about enough. 2 loops. Let's see here. If we go in the game, out the game. Okay, now it seems to be updating. It's always good when you see that blue box around it. So there we have it. So, and also now that it's not animated, you can actually walk around it, but once it's animated, it basically gets like the cage around it to the outer bound. So in that case, we wouldn't be able to walk inside. So that looks pretty good. Let's get back in here. And then just one little thing I think we can do is just move these pillars down by a little bit just so they don't kind of stick out. And then I think we can move the corner pillars by 1 voxel outwards as well, just so we don't get these overlapping sides. I think that would help. Or that's just like kind of future proofing our stuff so nothing breaks when we maybe color one of the beams differently or something like that. So 1.5, let's make sure it's actually 1.5 and not any other voxel direction or dimensions, because in that case it's gonna look a little bit weird. So here we have it, that's good. And now for the top lines as well, let me find the parent nodes. I guess if you were to move everything downwards by, wait a second, if you were to move the parent node by 1, like this, it actually already works. Now I'm just thinking if it would be better if you were to move it even more down, so it's kind of in the middle of this, but I think it's good that it's on top. I mean, the other option would be to move it somewhere here, but I don't think that's necessary. Kind of like it here. So let's save. And now we need to kind of start figuring out what we're actually gonna put on the turntable. So that's gonna be interesting. And another thing is to kind of figure out how the stuff should be nested, basically. So when we rotate our turntable, we kind of want what's on it to rotate as well, but it can be a little bit difficult if we don't do it properly. And right now, actually, I think since we have done like a lot of work on this arm, it should hopefully be enough. So maybe we don't even need the turntable in the end, but I just thought it would be perhaps a good idea to make one just in case. So now I'm gonna move this arm slide just to the back a little bit, so we have like a little bit more room on the table, so we can kind of start figuring out what's gonna stand on it. And also here is like, you have two options. It can be like you can like assemble like a brand new thing, or we could just put one of the assets that we have already created. So maybe let me see, how do we import that? I think you can import here a hierarchy. Let me just kind of figure out where I want to import it to. So maybe to the turntable. So import hierarchy. Let's go to the projects, and then let's kind of see. We could try it with Sandbox, what that would look like. Okay, so there we have our. Okay, so this is gonna definitely look too small. And also, okay, so this is the controller. So basically we would have, okay, that's really tiny. So we would have like one of the already built, and then we would kind of be able to space it apart, even though this is a whole other hierarchy. This might not be the best idea, so let's get rid of that. And now we need to delete all of this stuff as well. So I think we're just gonna try to build a Mech from scratch. It actually doesn't need to be like a bipedal humanoid template. So I think I'm just gonna make a couple of blocks, and then we'll try to like rearrange them in some way that kind of makes sense, and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so we have gotten rid of all of that stuff, hopefully. And now maybe we can, let's not duplicate this one because it has the black spots on it. Maybe we can duplicate this one and then we can name it, I don't know, Mech foot. So we can kind of distinguish a little bit in between them, and then we'll also see if these models are gonna be symmetric, and if they're not, we're gonna have to also distinguish between the left foot and the right foot because they're kind of similar but rotated different ways. As you can see with my hands, they're kind of similar, but one has a thumb on this side and the other one has it on this side, so it would be kind of weird if I had like two same looking arms, right? Or hands if they looked like this. So I guess we can try to nest to the turntable. So let's create a child node and we're gonna name it Mech controller. So this is gonna be basically a parent node that's gonna be able to move like the whole hierarchy. Yeah, we'll see. Now I'm trying to figure out which is better, if we make them unnested, because in that case it's gonna be easier when we kind of do the assembly, or not. Well, I guess we don't need a controller because controller would be useful if we were to animate it, so maybe we can just create a bunch of separate models and then just kind of assemble them together. So let's rename this node into Mech foot 0 maybe. Then let's see. So let's move this upwards to 32, just so we don't have any gap in between. And let's move this to maybe minus 28. And also we would probably get a better idea of the sides and of the size and everything if we were to duplicate this and just put the other foot down as well. So let's make another foot, Mech foot 1, like this, and then move it to plus 28, like this. And now we can already see that these are kind of close to one another, so maybe we can move them to maybe 36, just so we have a little bit more room and we can make a little bit bigger Mech. And also when we update one, because it's the same model, it's gonna get updated on the other side as well. Okay, so now let's extend this to maybe 48, just so we have like some space to work with. And also let's make it a little bit wider. And now we're just making some rough block sizes. We're not gonna go into too much details, at least hopefully not at this stage, but you never know with me. I can guarantee you anything. Or yeah, that's, I think I said it right. I'm just and also we can use the mirroring to make everything a little bit faster, or we don't need to pay as much attention to if everything is symmetric. So maybe let's get rid of that. And now let's extend this upwards, maybe to 6. So this is gonna be like the base sole of the foot. And then also we can basically cut it in half. That's also gonna help with the speed, because we don't have to count as much. So maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect, we got it to 16. Then we can extend this upwards. Let's see, like this. And then let's maybe just make some kind of suggestion that this is maybe like where the toes are or something like that. Then let's extend this upwards a little bit so we kind of have an ankle or whatever you want to call it. Then maybe just something like that. This is one weird looking foot, but yeah, and also we need to double it back in size, of course. So we got something like this. And now in this case, we can also see that it wouldn't hurt if they were moved backwards by a little bit. So just something like that. Come on. Okay. Next, we should move on to the legs, and then we can also kind of, one thing is to kind of figure out what the actual shape of the mech is gonna be, because it doesn't need to be exactly like the humanoid template. It could be something a little bit different, and also like what it's gonna look like, whether, yeah, those are kind of some considerations we can take into account. So now we can create, I guess, mech. I'm just trying to remember how the nodes are named in the bipedal human, because this one is also gonna have like a knee. I was just thinking that perhaps the knee can be more like the bird knee, so it's not like humans where you're basically standing like this and it can move backwards, but the birds actually move it into the other way, so it would be kind of like slouched forward a little bit. So that one has a leg and the thigh, so this should be mech leg. And let's see. So here we kind of have like our well, one of the thicknesses that we're working with. It doesn't need to be like the main one. So I guess we can just turn on the nice lines, and then I guess we can just fill this in, and we'll do some more modeling later on when we actually know a little bit more about our mech. So let's just center this pivot point, and then let's move it to maybe something like 2, and then let's double it in size. Then let's create a no, we're not making more child nodes. We're actually making a child node to here, so this is gonna be mech leg 0, and hopefully we're gonna be able to reassemble the back later on. So let's move this upwards, and now we also need to rotate it in the appropriate way. So I think it should be rotated by 90 degrees here, and then 90 degrees upwards. And I guess we're gonna start making like a T-pose, and then later on we can make it into something that looks a little bit more natural. So this one is at -36, and this one is at we don't know. So let's go to the inspector and let's put it to the appropriate, but now it's not centered to this. Why is that not working as intended? So okay, now we managed to center it, but we would have to make it a little bit more thicker still. So let's try to squeeze it to something like that. And then in Z, I guess 8. Cool. So now we have one of the leg joints. And then let's, I guess, duplicate it. It's gonna make the whole thing a little bit faster. So first let's duplicate it into mech leg 1. that can be moved just to the other side. So basically to minus 32, no, wait, what? 58, okay, so this one is still at 58. This one is at minus 32. Is this even centered? Let me just double check that. Let me double check the pivot point. So 12, 4. Yeah, it should be right. 12. Interesting. Let's turn on the bounding boxes so we can see a little bit better what's going on. So basically we need them to cover like this. And this is at 40, that's interesting. I'm not really sure why that happened. So this one is at 36. Is this centered on the foot? Perhaps the foot is not centered. 12. Okay, so the foots, the feet aren't centered actually. So let's move the pivot point to the actual middle. And now we might be able to actually center them correctly. So this goes to minus 36 and this one is gonna go to plus 36. Okay, awesome. We're getting somewhere, so that's good. And now we can basically duplicate this leg into a Mech thigh. So let's duplicate node Mech thigh 0. And this is gonna be moved upwards still. Maybe by a little bit less, just so we have some intersections. So maybe 116 or something like that. And then let's do something similar for the other leg, or this is gonna be a thigh actually. So let's duplicate node, name it Mech thigh 1. Mech thigh 1. It sounds like Taiwan, right? Mech thigh 1. A little thought. So to 116. Cool. So we kind of got our legs, and you can see if we were to make it like standing up, this is already getting pretty tall. That's why I think I'm gonna just, let me give you a rough idea of kind of what I wanted to go with, to kind of rotate it around to be maybe more like this. And then I'm also not sure that we wanna make the I'm not sure if we want to make the arms, or it can be just like some of those. Of these I actually remember the name. I think they're ATSTs from the Star Wars. Yeah. So these have like some legs to move across terrain, but then they don't have arms, just some guns. I mean, that's enough to fight rebels, right? So maybe we can go with something like this also. So now we're actually getting to one of the more exciting parts of this build, maybe, because, well, we need to make like the cockpit area or something like that. So maybe we can move that even into two parts. So maybe we can have like the crotch area and then the cabin area. So maybe, let me see, which part do we want to duplicate? Maybe Mech leg can be duplicated into Mech crotch. I think that's how you spell it. It's not really something that I often use. So yeah, let's create another child node. Mech crotch. And let's attach this to it. It's gonna need to be moved upwards a little bit. We need to rotate it also, because it's gonna kind of connect the two legs together. And then because this is gonna be like a central piece, we also need to center the pivot point to the middle. So 32, and this needs to go to 16. And then here, I guess this is fine. Okay, so now we kind of have it aligned. Maybe let's move it a little bit forwards and a little bit upwards. Just something like this. Of course, everything is most likely gonna change later on, but just to kind of get the idea. And then for the cockpit, the problem with the cockpit is basically if we make it like really big, it's gonna be difficult for the hand to grab it. But one thing I have thought of would be maybe like you have a basket and then it has like a little handle, so maybe the cockpit could have like a little grabby point that gets grabbed by the hand and then moved on to the basically the legs and this crotch area. So that could be interesting as well. So let's duplicate this into Mech cabin like this. And then the cabin can be like pretty large. So let's see, maybe we can make this into 64. And then I guess we can make it just a 4, or actually that's 8 block cube. And we'll see where we go from there. So now let me just recenter the pivot points again, just so we have everything lined up appropriately. So this needs to go to 0, perfect. And then let's create a child node. It's gonna be called Mech cabin. And then let's attach this to it. And then let's move it upwards. And as you can see, even though it's like 2 by 2 blocks, it's actually not that big when you compare it to the rest of the stuff. So maybe we can make it even larger still. now it looks really funny because it has these long legs and like this. I mean, it looks more like a big belly or something like that than a control unit. And now we're basically at the point where we need to decide whether we want to make like some shoulders and arms, or if we want to just put some guns onto it. And also, in case we do put some guns on it, does it need to be like a separate piece, or can it be already connected to the cabin or something like that? I think from the animation perspective, it would kind of look a little bit better if it had like those 2 smaller parts also, just so it doesn't look like you built some stuff and then you just plop the cabin onto it and that's it. So maybe you can make those 2 like separate nodes as well. So maybe we can name those, I don't know, Mech weapons. very very unique name. So Mech. And we totally know what we're going for. Weapons. Just trying to keep my options open. And then this can be a little bit smaller, so maybe it can be just 1 block high and then half a block wide. Yeah, I think so. And then it can be, I don't know, 1 block deep, something like that. And then it doesn't actually really matter where the pivot points are, and actually it would kind of be easiest if all of them were centered, because it's not gonna get animated, so why bother? But yeah, we'll see about that, what actually kind of turns out to look best or something like that. or if we get like some problems when we try to animate it. So now let's create another child node. This one is going to be called Mech Weapons 0. And of course it's going to get a Mech Weapons node to it. And yeah, now you can see this is kind of where it's really useful that we have this button to reset the view. Okay, let's get this outwards. And then let's try to position it kind of where it would fit. So maybe a bit forwards and then maybe a little bit upwards, maybe 192, something like this. And then let's duplicate this node, name it Mech Weapons 1. And then let's drag it all the way across to the other side. So from 39 to minus 39. Okay. Oh my gosh, it looks so yeah, funny, I guess. Okay. So now we can maybe try to kind of position it in a way that we want it to stand, and then we can start maybe modeling and making some more details. So let's see, maybe the legs can be rotated backwards a little bit. And then again, now we can see a little bit better that maybe it would make more sense if the leg would be maybe more towards here, something like this. So let me just undo all of the moves I made, and then maybe we can adjust our positioning a little bit. So maybe it can be somewhere here. And then let's just go ahead and check in the inspector if all of the voxel dimensions like line up nicely. So there we have that. And then we can just duplicate it over to the other side. So we have 36 minus 36, that's good. And now we change 58 into 52. And then we have a Z of 4 instead of 8. So let's quickly make the changes on both sides. And again, we can just save. I don't know how many times I have saved today, but it has happened to me before that the Vox edit crashed. Either during like assembly or animation, and yeah, that's a pain in the butt. So better save too often than not often enough, definitely. And now we can rotate it to be maybe at 105 degrees, just so it's sloped a little bit backwards. And now we're gonna need to basically like move all of the rest of the stuff so it's kind of aligned with it. So maybe this can go somewhere here. So now we have it at minus 36, 110, and then let's put this to minus 10. And then let's do this here as well. So it needs to move backwards a little bit. So 110 or not. Wait a second. Let me see. Minus 10. Let's move this to minus 10. And I guess now it looks right. Okay. Cool. And then this can be sloped like or rotated a little bit forward. So maybe if we put this to 70, let's see what we get. Okay, so we have a little bit of a gap here at the back. So we can fix that by making it a little bit shorter. Let me just reset the these to 90. And then we can Well, one option would be to kind of move this pivot point more towards the back, but that's not really something that we need to do, so I guess we can move this a little bit downwards. So maybe to 106. And let me try to rotate it again. So now when we get to 70 degrees, we have like a little bit smaller gap. So now let's do the same thing here. And then let's rotate it to 70 degrees. Cool. So now it's looking a little bit more dynamic or alive, and I think it should mostly fit into our build. Or like the worst thing would be if the resulting mech would be like too large and the arm wouldn't be able to move around it, or if we were unable to like if we were unable to animate it in a way that the arm would be able to pick up the cabin and then put it onto the rest of the stuff. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out, but so far I'm pretty optimistic about that. Let's move this downwards a little bit so it's kind of in the middle. Maybe it has like some rotating part here, and then it just moves through that. And we have also already kind of messed up our camera, so let's try to fix that as well. And now we can move this to 3 maybe. You can see again, we'll have to do some stuff to kind of fix this overlap, but we'll get there, don't worry. And 175, maybe it can be 156, just a little bit lower. And then let's do something similar for the cabin. Let's move it downwards so it touches the crotch part, or maybe there can be like a voxel or two of like a rotating thingy, just so it kind of can move around, so, or maybe like look around. So I just hope we don't like forget about this and we just kind of leave the floating cabin here on the top. Okay, this can be moved down like to 148. So I guess that's kind of a idea of what our final mech is gonna look like. Again, we could do a little bit more nodes with some arms and stuff, but then again the assembly animation can only take like 12 seconds, so we'll see if we manage to assemble this in 12 seconds. So yeah, I mean, how many nodes does this have? So 3 for each leg, so that's 6, 7, 8, 9. Might be possible, we'll see. Or maybe like the feet are already here and then just the rest. We'll see about that. Let me try to export it again to the game maker, just so we can kind of check if everything still works fine, or if there's some weird stuff going on. And it's usually sooner you detect such occurrences, easier it is to fix them, or less time consuming also. Okay, let me get here. I think we need to save, and then it should hopefully update once we refresh the game. So let's see, let's get out, and now it seems to be updating. No, okay, we have one block here. Was that before? What's going on? Let me see. Oh, we have a bunch of animations from that dude. Yeah, that might be causing some issues. And which one were we on? Oh no, I didn't notice that it imported all the animations. Oh crud. Let's see. So now I kind of need to find out. Okay, so now we need to basically find out all the animations, and it's gonna be a lot faster if I just delete them in the file manager than if we do it in the game. And also, while I'm selecting all of these, I think it might be a good idea to basically close the Vox edit, just so we don't have the actual project open in the moment of the great deletion. So I think it should work now. I think we also still have some remnants of our imported model, but hey, we can fix that off stream. Or well, I can do that. I don't have to bot. Uh-oh. That's not good. Yeah. Let me quit this because I need to get to the desktop to find the recycle bin. Let me see. Okay, now we need to figure out which of the animations we were actually working on. So let me first restore all of the stuff. Oh my god. And let's not save that. Okay, so now at least we have the base built. Oh my god. Yeah, I think I have deleted the animation or like the keyframes that we had. So now I need to figure out which of the animations on the list is actually the one that we have our Mech assembled, and then I can delete the rest, but I need to keep that one if it's still there. So I'm not seeing it right now. Okay, just idle. We need to keep the idle without any numbers and stuff. Okay, let's go back to our folder. Let's sort by type again. And now let's select all of these .vxas except for this one. So this one is the important one. So also all of this. Okay, now fingers crossed that everything is gonna work. So let me double check if all of the other VXAs are deleted. So VXM, VXB, VXA. Okay, the only one is, can I zoom this in? Not really, just, okay, so basically Mech assembly.idle.vxa is the only one left, and hopefully it will work once we open it up. Okay, nice. That was that took me by surprise, but luckily we managed to fix that. Okay. So that's also the reason why I didn't display right in the game maker. So let me try to export it again. Now that we only have one animation, and it can't like decide to use the other one. So let's wait for it to load. And I guess it's useful if this, now that you've seen it happen to me, you can kind of notice if something like this occurs to you. Maybe there can be like some stupid problem completely unrelated to, or maybe you just did like something 1 hour sooner that caused it. So yeah, hopefully I can make mistakes so you don't have to. It's part of a learning process, yeah. Okay, now let's wait for the game maker to restart again, and we can hopefully get the correct looking assembly now. Okay, test, let's get in here. Okay, so that's the old one, I think. Okay, here we have it. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, now everything looks as it's supposed to. And also the Mech, I mean, it's not the largest one, but it's like a pretty big one. And you can also kind of climb a little bit. Just some legs. Okay, so this works fine. So we can start modeling the Mech a little bit today, and we'll see how far we get with that. So I guess we can start with the feet. And yeah, these don't look like anything basically. So first let me just decrease them in size to kind of get a rough idea of what we're gonna be working with. And then we can add some more details in the next step. So let me just kind of put it back up. And also maybe we could do like some of these side supports. So in that case, we need to make it wider still, so maybe to 48. I don't think we're gonna use that many, but yeah, you never know. We can also decrease this in volume, just so again it's easier to work with. And we turn on our x-axis mirroring, just so we have similar things going on both sides. Now let's see, maybe we can do something like this. We're still kind of working with blocks, and then once we basically duplicate the volume, then we're gonna get into some more details. So maybe we can do something like this, so the foot looks a little bit more sturdy. And then let's see, so maybe we can get rid of this. I kind of like these 2 voxel steps, and maybe we can kind of try to keep this theme going on. So maybe here we can do something like this. And then I don't know, maybe we can do like some kind of a transition from the toes to the ankle or something like that. So now that we duplicate it, we need to also readjust the pivot point to 24. And then let's move to the animator to kind of see a little bit better what's going on. And also here you can kind of play around. Here is this light bulb. You can kind of control where the light is coming from. So that can sometimes help. And you can even turn them off if you just want to get like this flat look. But in our case, it doesn't really help. So let's turn this back on, so we can kind of get like some idea of 3D-ness. So for the feet, I think they look much better than what they did before. So let me also just check where this thing is sticking out. So maybe we can make this top part a little bit smaller. Let me turn on the nice lines. And then we can still reduce this. We haven't done too much of that. Then maybe we can do something like that. Maybe even 1 voxel further inwards, and then let's maybe keep the same width and then kind of extend it like so. I don't know, why not? So now that we put this back up, this looks all right. And then we need to keep in mind to make the leg part a little bit wider, because right now, as you can see, they're overlapping here on this and on this side. So yeah. And of course, before we forget, let's move on to the leg. So we need to make it at least 26. We can make it even 28 wide, just for the sake of it. It's a large asset, it's not gonna be really noticeable, at least not in my opinion. Even if we make it a little bit bigger. But now we're at that point that we kind of want to separate the leg from the thigh. So before we do any other modifications, let's maybe go here to our library and let's duplicate Mech leg into a Mech thigh. And then let's attach the thigh to the appropriate nodes. So this one, let me see, okay, it's here at the bottom. Mech thigh, and then here is another, like so. So now we can freely modify this without the fear of without the fear of it being replicated on the thigh area. Okay, so let me turn on the nice lines so we can see a little bit better what's going on. And then we can just pick some arbitrary height, maybe there, and just make this wider shape. And I think we kind of wanna make it like, I guess like a little triangle side. So like the foot is pretty wide and then the leg is a little bit narrower and then the thigh is narrower still, because I think that's gonna give it like a bit more sturdy, and it's like a lower chance of it being tilted over or something like that if it has good support. So I'm just kind of thinking, yeah, I guess it would be easier to figure out some details if we reduce the volume, because it's, as mentioned before, a pretty large model and the asset overall. So maybe we can do something like this and then just kind of gradually decrease it by a little bit. So maybe something like this, and then maybe one more step, and then that's it. And now that we're at this point, it would kind of look nice if this line would maybe be the same length as this one. So maybe let's see, 2, 4, 6, and this one is gonna be probably 8. No, it's also 6, but it kind of looks like they're not the same length. That's weird. But I think that later on with shading and stuff we can make it look even better still. So let me just duplicate the volume and then let's move back. So actually we aren't even above 1000 faces, which is actually pretty amazing. But we'll see if we manage to get somewhere closer to the limit later on. Okay, so now the top part of the leg is basically the same width as this. So let me trim the volumes and let's maybe make this a little bit narrower. So maybe to 20. And let's also readjust the pivot point. Why is it already at 10? Is it? Okay, so it's probably messed up here, right? But here it's at 12. That's interesting. But let's move it to 14 because we have now the new width. So 14. And then let's see, is this centered now? Okay, so this is centered. That's pretty cool. I'm not sure how we got to this, but yeah. Apparently the pivot point somehow moved by 2 points. I mean, I might have moved it by myself and forgot. That's also possible. And now here, let me turn on the ghost. Okay, so it's this way oriented. That's why I kind of wanted to see a little bit better. And then also we can make it like it's a little bit more narrow. So let me rotate it a little bit and then let's see. So basically we can put like 8 voxels away just to make it a little bit thinner. And then this part can be kept like a little bit chunkier, just so it's like the joint that keeps basically the whole leg connected to the other part. So this can be a little bit thicker or look a little bit stronger. So there we have that. So we're kind of setting ourselves up for next time when we're gonna basically get to start coloring the mech and then maybe even make some animations. And now that I'm looking at it, maybe we can rotate these thighs even a little bit further forward, just so it's a little bit lower, and I guess it looks a little bit better in this case. And now we also need to readjust the crotch part, or maybe a hip. Maybe we can rename it to be a hip. And also the rest of it. So now you can see like the tediousness if you don't have the stuff nested, but once we start the assembly, if we had it nested, it would be like even greater pain. And now in this case, I think it might be a little bit too forward. I'm just kind of trying to figure out where the point of balance would be for this thing, and if it's like too forwards, it would just kind of look like it's gonna tip over. So maybe we can keep this rotation at 50%. I think that's far enough, considering the rest of our stuff that we have. And then let's try to position this like somewhere here in the middle, and then the cabin also centered somewhere around that. And then we can just position this this weapons part somewhere near the middle of the head. And then let's just make sure the same coordinates are also used on the other side. So this one is at 172. So let's move this to 172 as well. And then this is at 18 and this is at 8. So let's move it forwards a little bit. So now this looks pretty cool in my opinion. At least we got... I don't know how much I had planned for today, but I think we got quite some good job done. We have managed to make this top part, the whole arm, and then also we have managed to kind of build this mech model that we're gonna later animate together. So I think that's gonna be it for today. Thanks for watching, thanks for staying till the end, and hopefully we see each other next time. So until then, bye bye!